Hello everyone and welcome to my evening painting demonstrations. Today I'm painting in acrylic and we're looking at the beautiful mosque at Istanbul called Suleman Mosque. And I'm really fascinated with these beautiful corridor arches and the courtyard of the mosque. Beautiful, gorgeous blue sky and the white marbles for the stones, golden kind of light inside of the arches. So I'm really interested in perspective and showing that most wonderful view through those arches. So I picked up a violet background today. So I mixed white ochre and violet to make it. So it's because there's a lot of darkness in the painting, and so I can find quite quickly my positive negative spaces, so the light will be painted and the darkness will remain. So that's why I've kind of squeezed the same colors for now to get started. Got some white, so ochre and violet. I've got my thin synthetic brush, so that will be good for sketching. Now I put some masking tape for my board, so just so I can play with widths of the board, and also I can test the colors on the side as well. So if at some point I might need to move the tape and extend and have a little bit more space, or perhaps opposite, move it and narrow the image down, make it quite panoramic. That gives me that flexibility. Normally I just put a line, but for you to see on the screen, I thought if I'll put the tape, maybe it will be easier. Maybe at some point I'll remove it. So we'll see the image slightly differently as well. Right, so I'm going to start sketching. I'm going to have a little bit of white and ochre and violet, but the lighter version. So I don't want to go with a lot of light color too early on, even for sketching. So if I make mistakes, it's not too strong, standing out. I'm going to make it reasonably runny, so it will be easy for me to sketch. I'm just going to check it against my board. Yeah, I can see that. And let's plan. I'm going to start with my main column, kind of a central column, the corner column. So where it's going to be in my painting. So perhaps a little bit off center, so I can plan it maybe somewhere here. Okay, so there are loads of verticals. I have to start quite simplified and then work my way around it. And what I can also see, if I were to extend this picture, that's why I wanted to move my boundaries of the future painting. I should be able to carry on those diagonal lines, which will help me with the perspective. So perhaps something there. And for sketching quite sharp, strong perspectives, I need to be loose and I need to make adjustments freely as well. So perhaps something's happening there. So rough directions first. I also want to be able, for example, I have the floor perspective quite sharp, but I might be a little bit free-spirited here and have it slightly shallow. So perhaps I'll have less of the floor and more of the exciting part of the painting, but I'm going to plan it out and see if it's going to work out for me, if the perspective will work out. So that could stay there. And I'm also planning the back wall. So just a rough guidance before I kind of stay with those lines. Let's plan some of those back walls where these lines, maybe a tiny bit lower, will come in. Okay, so I can see part of that space there. Right, so these two are quite high up. but they more or less need to be on the same level. So that could drop a little lower, and that could stay as it is for now. Okay. And let's see if some of the, I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 big arches which I can see. Let's roughly again plan some of the space, perhaps somewhere here. So that's my main arch is starting. It just disappears. Maybe a little further out on the right. I just pick up a sponge so it rubs off easier. Okay. Okay, perhaps this one there. And that arch is becoming more elongated. Okay. And let's plan, so this is quite a wide space. So the arch goes away, and this is a little narrower, as it's much sharper perspective. Okay. I think that will need to go steeper. So I'm already seeing the disadvantages of my own planning kind of amendments. I think that will be better there. And okay, that's still okay there for now. Maybe a little bit lower. Okay, and then there's another few spaces here, a little bit narrower. Okay. So I'm interested into those, not the rhythm of shapes, how they will be coming together, because they're actually, I can see the halfway through part, and quite a lot of that wall is there as well. So even if I were to make a lot of changes in the future, at least I'm studying, I'm exploring that perspective. I'm trying to make my composition out of what I'm seeing as well. Okay, maybe I will make it a little bit shorter, maybe still not as steep as it is in the photograph. Okay. Good, and just to have it as overall plan where those shapes will come in, gaps will get smaller and smaller. So those might be, some of those arches will go now. Okay. And that arch will come way further here. These ones we can't see as well. Things will come a bit more clear as well when I start painting the sky. Okay. And the space is here. Might even go out further out. So I might need all of that space. Still considering and playing how I'm gonna trim it. Okay, and then all of that darkness We'll come here. Okay. Right, anything inside of the courtyard? So that space at the back, it's almost becoming a straight line, and that's where I need to double check that level here and placing it all the way across. There'll be some lovely lights and shadows on the square as well. Okay, and the corner of the main mosque building just coming up to this side, so then I can see the height of it coming across. And this side is much lower. Okay. And again, just perhaps planning some of them, just checking I've got the right height. So if I've got some of the columns here, perhaps it will go a little bit higher. So small pointers. So I could have gone for all the arches and the little windows and this and people and the shadows and everything else, but it will be harder if I'll make it wrong first time around. So let's just double check before we go anywhere further of the shapes of the domes. Okay, so that will fit in. Okay, so just roughly there. Another one. Okay. And let's just try some of these spaces of the arches as well. So we've got two halves and two full arches as well. So roughly in perspective, if I were to divide it into half, one side will be slightly bigger than the other. I think that angle needs to be sharper. That's what it is. Okay, that's steepness. A bit too steep, or a bit too high. Okay. So then the dome here is a little lower, but those shapes are going nice and tall and rising up and filling all of that space as well. Right, so back to those arches, if I divide the space into half in perspective, so one space is bigger than the other, and then we can have a full arch and a half, full arch and a half. And that's when I'll see if now she's also got slightly different spaces. That was quite fabulous to see. I think they might have been built in different times or mended or reconstructed. So some of the widths and height of the columns is different. It's quite exciting to see that change. And that continues there. Okay. So that gives me a bit more of a sense of space. Okay, right, let's move this line. And I think that will work better for me. So instead of my elongated space, I'm extending it for a little bit more. So when I was taking some photographs in Istanbul, I made sure I photograph things above, sideways, connection. So just in case if I need that extra information. So that's there. And my column. Okay, and then those spaces will start developing. And that playfulness. Kind of the feel of the scholarly. Those arches, those courtyards. Just stepping away just to have a look how it comes up. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that angle here. There's a lot of space of the ceiling. The overall, that light will be coming through there as well. Okay. It also gives that sense of university, because the Suleman Mosque is right next to university. That busy studying, exploration, research, all of that is very similar to European architecture, and makes it fabulous to look at. Right, so I've got lovely corridors, almost like labyrinths of things in there. Right, so overall, I'm happy with the layout, proportions. I probably will need to tweak the arches and tweak the shapes. But if I were to start now moving on from the line to positive negative spaces. So if I were to paint the sky and some of the light areas of the mosque, I think that will start taking shapes now. Right, and I'll start now with some simple positive spaces. I'm going to start painting some sky. If I were to use fellow blue, it's a little bit further from ultramarine kind of violet, so it will give me a really further away type of blue from this violet. So fellow blue got a little bit more green in it. And I could even paint all of the sky in one color, in one darkness. I will make it slightly darker at the top and slightly lighter close to the buildings. But even if I would have painted it as plain, that would have been fine as well, just for our positive negative spaces. And then that sky could have been painted, repainted, dead clouds, or that would be absolutely fine as well. So I think I'm just going to check it in light. Yeah, that will be fine. So I can leave the spaces for the small domes. And having those positive, negative spaces will slowly tell me if that silhouette is nice, so I need to tweak it. So I can almost paint by numbers. Okay, I've got this shape. I can just fill it in. As I'm going quite significantly higher, I will add darkness to my shape. And then I'll just blend it to my existing color. Okay. I'll uniform it and match all these little segments between themselves later on. So let's just find those spaces first. So my next light area. So I can leave the space for the column. And let's just find that gap for it, for the sky. Little steps for the shape. And there probably will be a dome coming up, but if I'll just make it light for now, I can make the dome slightly different color later. But that is a light space. Little indentations into my column there. Just makes a little extra exciting pattern. It's a tiny bit of light, but I think I'll just put a little mark and then check check its position when all of the sky is done, all of the lights is done. Okay, and now let's have a look at this side. There are different structures which I'm not focusing on yet. Again, as I'm going slightly higher, I'm increasing darkness. So this column immediately popped up in front of us. Now I've got two sides of it. And if it's too thin or too wide, I can paint over it and correct it. So if I've got tiny bit more blue, a bit too much, let's have a look. And I can find this space as well. I'll define the towers and precise dome patterns after, but if I'll just do an overall shape, just to accommodate the arch space. And a bit more darker. This is the highest point of sky. I'll give it a moment to dry, it will stop being reflective there. So one color, just developing the tones. Very subtones, very small. changing tones. I'm just blending so it's all stays. We see it as a shape more than a precise three-dimensional effect. So shapes are first. Good, and let's do this arch as well. Quite like that I see where the arch is finishing, so it's not gets cut off. I think one arch is enough to be cropped. Okay, and that width of this metal construction which holds the arches, supports them, could be tweaked as well. That's good. That's immediate space. Could even think of your own designs of moonlight, and we've got some coolness or light violet walls for the mosque, or you can have a look at that golden color. You can play with all sorts of scenarios. You could have almost fireworks and fantastically lit up areas planned and thought through. Depends on what you want from the picture. Right, I'll leave the sky as it is for now, and I'm going to wash my brush and look at the basic shapes for the buildings on the sunlight. Now, painting the most light parts of the marble facade. If I start very light straight away, I wouldn't have that extra depth to show. So I'm going to paint light, but with the plan that I can go over it and make it even stronger light and kind of build up that depth within a light tone. So all of the building there is going to be light, but how much light, and that's so small variations of that light and color will be really important. Right, so for the lighter tones, I'm going to use some white and ochre. So that will give me a really bold light. Because I want to study and explore the depths there. If I still go slighter version than my current lines, but a little bit more solid, less opaque. So my lines were a little bit more opaque. So let's compare just enough fresh ochre, and there's a tiny bit of violet present. And let's do the big shapes of light first. Again, I'm still looking for spaces, negative spaces, finding those arches, maybe tweaking the positioning of them. Okay, maybe this one will come a bit more here. There's a shadow from something probably above me, which I already painted this area, so I'll have to come back to that shadow. Ah, it's a shadow from the central paint courtyard little building, and I think there's a column there, so that's where the shadow is from, of course. So I'll paint that shadow later on. Let's focus on the main structure. Okay, so some of these almost little boxes, maybe they're a little bit too big. Okay, so it's where the dome gets slightly, it's okay. I can work with as it dries. I'll add some more blue into that corner, so that's easier for me than to spot now because I'm operating with these colors and light. And I'm coming up to the next column here, so I can leave the space for it. All of that could stay light, but I haven't looked at the details of the building behind yet. If I'll leave that supportive belt, that will give me the structure and continuation. And that will be the column, which looks a little slender here. So let's widen it up by wiping a little bit of paint. And as I said, even if I'll get it not the right size, I can paint over it. And my next arch, I can just see a little bit of light here. Okay. And some of the columns of these arches are lighter, some are a bit more dark. For the moment, if I'll make them all light, I think they're all made from different stone. Some of them are very dark marble, some of them are very light. But what I can also see is the gorgeous light produced by these arches. So again, if I look for that pattern of light, they're a little stretched and have some weird, interesting shapes. Really makes me look. That light is continuing. And I can paint little doorways over. Okay. There's a little connective light on the ground. I'll make it slightly darker and paint for now. This might be how much space or that light is spreading on the ground. Makes it quite an exciting reflective surface almost, but it's not reflective, but got that mysterious look for it. Okay. Playfulness. Looks also a little bit of light because there's one gate to come into the courtyard, another gate, central gate. So we can also see perhaps a little light somewhere there connecting. You might make those little connections of light here as well. Okay, so the arches need to be a little bit wide and taller. Now I can see them, how much light tone I'm applying. Okay, and this comes to the column again. It looks a bit wobbly, but that's okay. Okay, so that could be touched up easily. Okay, and that light again starts behind the column here. It's coming through there. It's maybe that golden color through, and there are some, the dome's got slightly different color than my golden, but I think the shape of the stone for the moment, let's just do it all of it. Then I can see the arch more than what's behind it. And then I can see the other arch. And actually there is another little space there as well. Okay. So I'm glad that these colors now drying, so they're becoming slightly darker when the sky is a bit more solid. So that gives me a lot of kind of opportunities to build up on. Okay. And let's add a similar paint to some of the taller structures here. Right, so that dome might just use some blue, some to correct my space here, so I can see the little extra sky. Can shape up that lovely curvature. Okay, again, it doesn't matter if the sky is not quite connecting, or might even put a cloud and connect it. There's a little whispery cloud somewhere there. Probably working it back into the shapes here. Quite a flat surface, which will have quite a lot of wonderful light on it. Let's just identify it as a shape first. And there is a number of domes on top. Those little towers. And then this one will go a little bit higher. Okay. Making it slightly, just tiny bit, it's a bit reflecting on the screen. Tiny bit different in darkness. So then it will be a reminder for me for later on, just to have it slightly in the shadow. And I think that belt will continue the shape of the dome. I think the actual dome is somewhere here. Okay, let's come back to lighter color variation. Okay, I've lost my darker line here, but I can paint it over. It would be a good contrast of that wonderful light. And then carry on this light through. Okay. Just need to watch some of these vertical lines so they stay in vertical as I'm painting under an angle. Okay, I might let it dry and come back to it as it dries. Right, and let's have a look at some of the structures of these columns and some of the arches. So I might just come back to some of my darker tones again. So let's have mainly oak and violet. And I might even bring, to make the columns even darker, if I were to add a dab of blue, it will make the tone slightly darker. Thinking of getting some of that light, that the shadows will have some light as well. So some of that, right, if I were to put something underneath, it will be reflected, hopefully a little bit less. Okay. Okay. Right, so let's take another picture of the stage. You okay there, Jaginda? Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you. You are muted.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's very architectural.
Yes. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's lovely how the background and all the colours you've done is sort of bringing everything alive. The
Mhm.
sky is beautiful.
Thank you. So just the simple shape of it.
Yeah, it's just look. Even if you did nothing else, that looked so nice. The arches and the sky.
Yeah, I agree. That's it. That's it. Finished. Bye. But yeah, it just gives that structure, that positive, negative.
Yeah, love it.
Let me just put it vertical so I can double check my lines as I keep doubting myself on
Mm.
the screen. Let's, if I take a picture and look at it straight on. No, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. This one could be a little bit straighter. Okay. It's only this one tiny bit more wobbly. All the other ones are fine. Lovely, good. Let me wash this sponge as well. Sponge pin's really good as a rubbing out tool. I started using a tissue recently, and it's the tissue bin giving all the bits.
Yeah.
Which is not so good. Okay, this is a bit dark. We'll see. Let's let it dry. Right. Anything else I need to tweak? This column. While I spotted it. That's that way, and a little bit lighter way the other way. Might even do something now there. Okay, maybe it will be darker, but at least it's got that structure now to it as well. Right, let's put it back on the recording. Oh, it is recording, sorry. It is recording. Right, so let's now gonna wash my brush and work into some warmth behind the smaller distant arches. I need some crimson. So now I'm going to add to my ochre a little bit of white as normal and some crimson. I'm going to check it against the painting. Perhaps I might need a little bit of violet, some of those shadows, but let's just place that quite strong heat. There's a lovely green door in this area and some gorgeous red. I think that will work there. That might be a little bit too strong. Maybe a bit more ochre. Maybe a bit more orange. Maybe a dab of violet to cool it all off. And then perhaps, okay. And perhaps a little lighter tone, which I can just make by adding white. Let's just work with that for the moment. Becomes quite nice and juicy. So this is probably one of the first colors I'm using here, which are thicker and more opaque colors than I've used earlier here. So that will be more intensive. Okay, that darkness in within the arches is changes as well. At some point it's getting lighter. At some points it's getting darker. That light trapped in those narrow corridors of arches is lovely. Just making my decisions here. And again, sometimes it's just blocking is enough and then evaluating it afterwards. So we'll stay there together. Because there are arches like these ones inside, so we see some of them going that way as well. But some of them disappear and mingle up in light. So I'm exaggerating that orange, which I think gives that heat of the shadows, kind of a very welcome heat. Slight change of color by adding a little more ochre. And again, it's just so effectively warm and that depth building up naturally. If I don't get the shapes right, I'm getting excited about the color. So I can tweak the shapes if I don't get them right after. But if I hit the color, the right boldness at the right connection. Yeah, because I can come back to the arches again. That shape looks a bit silly. Maybe it needs to be connected elsewhere. Maybe it needs to be that space changed. Okay, that's a bit better. Maybe I'll even bring that color further here. That's meant to be a person, but it doesn't make any sense. So let's paint that person over later. And that's gone a little bit high, so let's just drop it slightly lower. Again, find connection with a bit of light after. I'll put some stronger red here. Maybe a little too intense. A little too much detail, so let's just summarize that. Summarize the light of it. Violet and orange as a beautiful, as opposite colors, they're beautiful, beautifully mixing together as well. I think I'll just give it a small guidance of light without painting defined shapes, just a little blend of that light, at least for now. I just diluted the edges, so have that shine through it. Okay. And let's check if that is too light or too dark. I think that might be quite nice. I'm getting it slightly lighter. Lighter. And slightly darker on the top. Okay, that's interesting. Tiny bit more violet to make the arches to stand out. It's a good depth. Again, I'm painting, I've sorted the columns out, but now I'm finding that light. So if the shapes of the columns will go, that's okay. I'm developing the light and a slightly lighter version of it. Maybe a dab of white with it, so it will have not just ochre present, but the violet present, but still light. So I'm painting still the shadows. It is too bold for a shadow. Up inside of the shadows. Those arches could be that color, but maybe a bit too light. Love that color, but I don't think it's in the right place yet. Oh, no, 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 that will be my light here. That's okay. Sorry, I thought it was a pattern here. I'm okay. I'm still okay here. That could be my light on this side. And then here it's only small amounts. Mhm. And this light here. Okay, that's still the shadow. So I'm catching up, so my shadows and my light don't have a huge change, so that's when I will be ready to come back to my wonderful light and make the difference. Slightly darker tone under the arches themselves. It's also not just darkness under the arches, there are also some darker patterns there, which I already studied in my other painting. So I make that reference and connection as well. Okay. Let's make this top shadow slightly changing as well, not just staying super light, but varying. Hmm. So even have cool and warm corners present at the same time. I think that will be exciting as well. Will show some extra depth for us. Right, so if I've got some of these sides of the arches cool, these ones could be a little bit more warmer. Let's see how much warmer they will need to be. There's already that sketching light, kind of sketching lines creating that light. Maybe just a little more. Land color. Just looking, comparing, thinking. Side of things will get things a little lighter. This is the door. So this is the door, and this is the door as well. Of a different kind, right? And let's have some more light present. Okay, now that stronger contrast comes in. Makes the depths even further. It's much more solid. And suddenly this column comes in the light as well. It's a lighter material column as well. I'm looking for the shadows, but also I'm starting to make adjustments for my existing columns if they don't quite. I've worked out my perspective, it's all good here, but now a couple of patterns of light don't quite fit within my photograph and my painting. So I'm just going to follow. If I were just painting those lights here and then work with my existing columns. Right, this one looks like it's falling now. Okay, let's just readjust it here. And this bold light is here. That's where we've got the shadow from the statue, not statue, from the obelisk there. And I can spot that by looking at the higher. So that's how I can leave my shadow. So that's good. Stay light. And that stays in the shadow. And I can paint a lighter dome shortly as well. I haven't forgotten about it. I need a smaller brush to define some of the shapes here as well. My white is quite an orangey white, and I would love to change it. Not just all change it, but in some areas change it to more yellowish white, to pale, maybe pink or pale blue white. I'm still collecting my shapes, positive, negative spaces, shapes. Started being the space we want it to be. Right, let's make this side a little light. I think if I wipe my brush and have it less orangey now, and have maybe a little bit more ochre, this will be much more yellowish, white. A little wobbly silhouettes of the arches. Again, something I can tweak after, but I'm interested into that proportion of light in correct its darkness or light. That's what I'm mainly aiming. And if I've done that, it means that I can tweak other details after. Right, if I change color here and change the color for the domes, so they're no longer looking blackish. So my violet, so my ultramarine, fellow blue, it's my blue is here. I'll use a tiny bit of ochre, orange. It will should give me a little bit more gray, maybe a tiny bit of violet with it. So I want a grayish tone, but light version of it. So some more white. And okay, so that comes very close to the color of the sky. So all the sky need to be darker, or the dome need to be lighter, maybe a bit of both. I'll make the dome lighter first. Maybe this area of the sky will need to have a little extra darkness. Also, photographs often pick up solid black and solid white, so it's overexposure. Camera can't quite deal with it, so this is it's all dry. We will see it a little bit better. But that overexposure doesn't mean that in natural space we will see that very light tone. So that's why I'm making my decisions based on perception of other colors around. Okay, yes, definitely. Let's need to go slightly darker for the sky. Yeah, that's a bit too dark. I need much smaller change. Once we'll start reflecting, stop reflecting, we'll see it better as well. Right, and I'm back to the highlights. It's a lovely silver metal, almost, I think it's lead, but it's just such a beautifully done. It looks so clean and fresh and majestic. I've got a lot of white. Yeah, you can see that difference now between that white and that gray. So I want some of the gray left, but the glow of the white is there as well. And to try here, maybe a tiny bit. Slowly, slowly, element by element. Building that courtyard. Don't want that light coming in on the ground. And making these highlights slightly more stronger. So as usual, I start from picking up the elements from a photograph, and then develop the shapes I might prefer, tweak them, and then work with my painting rather than the photograph. Just work with elements I have. So things make sense and things not just blindly copying the photo. This arch has got some lovely characters. Maybe slowly I need to start to define more of them. Okay, so that light is there. Maybe I'll bring that a width of the warmth of the light further. Right, I've got a bit of green, sorry, blue in here. Let's make the color wrong. So let's keep the warmth here. So perhaps I'll expand this light. Not too sure what that shadow is. It looks like something is above our heads because it's heading not just from that central piece, but from somewhere above us as well. Maybe there's an extra. Oh, of course, it will be minaret. Silly me. I think I've just missed the minaret here. think there is a just tiny, tiny. I might just put it out now. Of course, it will be. It will be minaret. Ah, silly me. So that's what that shadow is going to be. I've been overthinking of my Venetian inspirational pieces. Yes. Let's make it slightly following the shape of the building here. Might make it a little lighter than what I've just done, but just changes that architectural structure. That's why that shadow is blending with the darkness and the light. And let's use a larger brush so I can have a bit more stronger, easier to make a straight line for the minaret at the back. I might just follow it through here. So different mosques have different number of minarets. If I remember it correctly, the mosques which had 4 minarets were commissioned by the Sultan for 4 or more. And the less number ones that might have been commissioned by somebody else. So this one has 4 minarets. So this is the one we can see in a light. And the one opposite will be right above our heads. Again, I'll adjust my column because it's easier to adjust the column than tweak all the little changes of color. That's good. Actually, the shapes of the people became more, I've got almost like an adult and a child there. Became a little bit less obscure, but at the same time, there's more connections there. I'll put some lighter heads or maybe just light catching over the figures. It doesn't have to be just heads. That busyness gives that space as well. Mhm. And let's tweak this column now as well. Bring it back. think this one I want just to bring a little forward. It's quite nice. It's that line continues into a lighter tone, but a little bit of everything, a bit of darkness, a little bit of light. Okay, too similar. Let's just make it varied. Right, so I think it's time to go back to some more, a little bit of extra darkness. Not sure if I like that section of the sky. With that paler cloud, I think where I actually do have a cloud is much higher. I was painting it as it was working for me at the time. So let's tweak our sky. Let's double check its darkness in places, close to the domes, and close to the light tones of the building here. We'll have a stronger contrast. And I can also tweak the shape of the minaret here. At the moment it's kind of protruding in an exciting way, but it doesn't tell me as much story, so or might make it less protruding from behind the column, or I need to think in the future of making its significance in a different way. And that's where maybe my cloud, a little bit of that light cloud will come in. When we were in the Blue Mosque, at the most beautiful, beautiful blue sky and a most incredible kind of glowing white clouds. I couldn't photograph it. Obviously, I didn't have enough time or space or opportunity to paint it or sketch it. But the effect was so incredible that clean white and the simple, wonderful shape of the architecture and that grandness of the whole atmosphere. It was quite something. Right, let me get a little bit more extra white here. And the rest of the days we had a very clear sky, blue sky, and no clouds. So that was the only day with some fabulous white. I like that white, but the shape of the cloud is taking attention from the mosque. Maybe that white of another cloud will come in. Oh, just realized that my board doesn't show all the space here. There we go. So there might be some other heights to the clouds further up above us. And this one might be a little softer than, might be a hint of it. I might wait for this area to dry and repaint it in a plain blue and decide how that will develop. I think that will be quite good. And double check all these angles as well. I think my round brush strokes of the filbert brush, given it maybe a little bit too round, like structures in this part of the roof. Let's make this sky back to plain. Maybe I can even still wipe it off. Yes. Okay, let's just make it a little better. Flatten tone. And then make a decision about the cloud. Maybe it will be a different size. Maybe it will be a little bit coming from the left. Maybe it will be less significant shape coming through. As it is a bit shiny, I'm gonna let it dry. In this corner. Yeah, we'll just melt away while the paint is still wet. Maybe it will be softer to work on it. Okay. Perhaps that's for now. That's beautiful sky will allow me to have a little bit of reflective surface. Just trying to go extra bold and light. And if need, I can just do a little wash over it with a darker blue. So again, my column stands out tiny bit more, just minuscule amount more every time. I think that's more the floor there. I think I'm ready to make this floor level slightly warmer as well. Less darker. I like that depth, so perhaps some of it will remain there. Or maybe I'll use more diluted color. But it's need to be moving from a much darker tone to a medium one, and maybe even moving to a bit of coolness I haven't quite decided yet how. So unless I place some color and start seeing it on its surface, I might not know what to do next. Maybe I'll go more into the violet, but less orange will be present. But if I add white to the violet, you'll have that pink purple, pinkish purple color. Okay, maybe not as light as that, a bit more violet to add. That's better. Still want to keep some of my lines, my sketchy lines for the perspective of the floor. I mean that I have to get rid of all that dark brown violet tone I've done earlier, but I think the violet will start dominating the area. A little bit at a time if I'm not too sure. You can always paint it gentler. And perhaps this lighter violet will start coming through in the ground here as well. Now we're more in the shadow here, so it can't be too light. But the light from underneath of the arches will start coming through. And maybe this light is still coming through here as well, but it will be diluting and naturally blending. So I'm looking at directions of shadows here, direction of light here, directions of the floor and perspective, and trying to do something in between. So perhaps in some point the color will dominate and the patterns will be more significant, and maybe the lines will come back. So where that highlight of the next to the column will start working. I think these are quite nice to have them dark. But I'm not convinced as this one need to remain dark. Maybe it will be more transparent and will dry in between in darkness. It's quite nice color to use, perhaps for some of the perspective lines. It's more suggestive. Don't want them to be too precise. So want it to be part of the light, but a little hint of the lines could be present. Various shapes. Okay, so the world is coming to our shadows. It's opening up more and more to us, that happiness and peacefulness of it. That's when I started in a little more variety of color and depths. So playfulness of light continues. Now we start seeing that entrance is slowly becoming in. Well, this is a side door, but there's another side openings somewhere here. And that contrast of light telling us about it. Now, some of these lights are becoming quite flat, so might need to tweak some details on them. There's some patterns over the doors, maybe working into the doors, maybe varying how I was varying the shadows. I'll start varying this light as well, changing slightly in its strengths. Need a bit of tweaking here. These are getting really nice rhythm, but I haven't quite decided what I want to do them further. Floor is coming on. I'm going to let it dry, and perhaps some other highlights will start happening there and making connections with that reflective marble surface. Maybe I'll just exaggerate some of that. Like maybe I'll need to stop and not overdo it while it's still wet. And just leave it as it is and see how that will come up. And then that volume of arches is slowly started to happen as well. I'll play a little bit more with the people and double check the sky even. I needed it to be dark here, but maybe I can still make a subtone, not as too light to be next to the domes, but still being a little bit lighter in this area. So it's not going to be too clashing with some of my flooring there as well. So I'm slowly getting there. The volume building up, the excitement building up. So there's more attention to nuances now as the big changes has happened. Can also perhaps remove this line, my tape. Oh, I think my tape is ripping the paper, so it's best to remove it so I can paint over it. So if anything rips or anything makes any changes, but it's also giving me quite a nice shadow. Maybe my final painting is not going to be all the way to here. Maybe let's have a little look. So it's that composition is still developing. Yeah, maybe it's gonna stay here, or maybe I will can keep a little bit of the shadow. That makes it that extra depth. It doesn't have to be as a line, but it's almost could be a little blend of darkness. I quite like that. If I were to bring some of that light over, but that shadow will stay behind. That's another interesting development for me here. But thank you very much for being with me tonight. Lovely having you watching. And if you have a chance and you would like to give it a go, give it a go. Maybe just pick up a small area. It doesn't
Yeah, I just
very
love
big piece.
the view of the sky. It was
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.